everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Crypt Choir. I am your host, Lewis, and it's been quite some time since I've made another video. Unfortunately, I've been busy with work, life, and other projects, but hopefully I'll be able to get back into the swing of things. In my last video, or one of my past videos, I did mention that I want to dedicate this channel more to putting a spotlight on the events for CEDH that are going on in the West Coast. So that's what I'm going to try to do with doing some videos on top 16 and meta breakdowns of the events that happen out here in the West Coast. Now, some of them might be smaller than what you would normally see in other channels, like with Comedian or with Lamore's Cards. But like I said, I really want to talk about more of the stuff that's going on in the West Coast and give a shout out to some of the great players we have out here and some other up and coming players that I'm seeing a lot and hope to see them out in bigger tournaments and really show the grand community what they're made of. So without further ado, let's get into this tournament here for today's video. Now, this was a tournament that happened on November 3rd, I believe, called All Hallows Eve, held over at Game Castle in San Jose, or Redwood City technically, but it's San Jose area. So right here we have the meta breakdown. Now we have 3 rock side decks, of course, that made the top cut. Out of 9 entries, we have 2 blue farms that both made it, making a conversion rate of 100, which is surprising to me personally. We have Kinnan with 3 entries, only 1 making the top cut. We got Anala, 2 Anala decks making the top cut. Now that's a little surprising because I don't think I really see a lot of Anala anymore. So that's a bit exciting and a little spooky to see. You know, right now, since out here in the California meta, it's kind of always been kind of dominated by Rograk, specifically out here in NorCal area. But you know, that's just how it is. And then we have a Francisco and Racio's deck, 1 of 1, which is pretty interesting to see. And then we have 1 Najila making it in to top cut, another 100% conversion rate. And then we have 2 Obnixilis, both of them not making it. 1 Tivit and not making it. And then Malcolm Timna, so another surprise combo to see there. And then some other one-ofs. Most ones that kind of stick out to me is the infamous Cruel Claw. Interesting to see that. Bruce and the Thrasios, the little Dawn Waker. That's interesting. Niv Mizzet, very interesting, even though I think it's probably one of the commanders that got hit the most from the bans. A Samwise Gamgee. I'm surprised with this and not seeing the partner pairing of Samwise and Frodo. So that's a little interesting choice of just using Samwise. We have Tameshi. A lot of ups and downs with Tameshi, seen in other bigger metas. It's either doing really good or you don't see in a top cut. So that's, I think it's a pretty good deck. I think it's very difficult to pilot, but it's still good to see people still rocking Tameshi. We have Dahada, Hiritsugu and Kairi, Lumra, Attraction, and Poral Corvold. I know who plays that, buddy of mine, still trying to keep the dream alive. But let's get into the top 16, starting with number 16. All right, here at number 16, we got Glacial City, otherwise known as Anthony. A good buddy of mine, love playing games with him. I don't think I've had a game actually end that we've played together. I think all of them have either been an ID or have just gone to time, which is something we talked about last we spoke, which is kind of hilarious. But here he is on Niv Mizzet Perun, trying to keep the dream alive, coping real hard. Now, going through, most of the stuff seems kind of the same. Well, I'm not too familiar with it, especially now with the changes, but we have Generous Plunder, Menace. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may create a treasure token. When you do, target opponent creates a tapped treasure token. Whenever Generous Plunder attacks, if it deals damage to a defending player equal to the number of... It deals damage. Okay. So really, it's just another way to make more treasures to try to get Niv Mizzet out. You got Harmonic Prodigy, Roaming Throne, all fantastic. Oppressive when you have Niv out and these out too. It is disgusting. Feels really bad for your opponents in the table when one or both of these are active. It's almost unbeatable. We got Magda, of course, to make more treasures. We have the new Magda, well, new-ish Magda, same thing. We got Obsessive Astronomer. I don't think I'm familiar with this one. Whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards. Oh, okay. So just some more drawing, putting a new mechanic in for the table to forget about, because I'm sure that's what happens all the time. Polywog, kind of the new de facto draw engine that most decks are putting in now. Things are the same. A transmute artifact to get some of the mana rocks out. I'm seeing a lot more in these high mana decks or decks that really want to abuse this, like Tameshi for sure. Let's see, anything else new? I think everything else seems to kind of be minor misstep. Whoa, that's crazy. I am surprised anybody is running minor misstep. I guess it's Niv, so you kind of want to just be running it. Like Stifle doesn't seem out of place to me. Like that seems, yeah, of course you're gonna run Stifle, but minor misstep, surprising. Blame of duplication. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm not counting Simian Spirit, guys, since that's something you're never really gonna pitch. 9 targets. I don't know if that's enough for Flare. Maybe it's just a backup card. I mean, you can still hard cast it. Like I see that a lot. So, but I think it's still a good card. I mean, you're gonna be drawing a lot. Disrupting Shoal has been a counter spell I've been getting got with a couple of times. Actually, surprisingly more potent than some would think, especially if you're coming across some cards where like maybe it's on your turn and you have like Force of Negation, so that doesn't like become a dead card on your turn, because if you have like Disrupting Shoal on it, you could counter something with it. Maybe like Sink into Stupor, or what other card that might be dead that's not a counter spell. Disrupting Shoal now kind of turns it into one, which is pretty cool. But moving on, we have here Jeweled Amulet, Chromox, Lotus Bloom, kind of with like the Transmute Artifact, or just if you get it in your opening hand, you can kind of cast it and wait 3 turns. Diamond Pickaxe just to make more treasures. Yeah, kind of have the normal suite. I'm surprised there's no Fellwar Stone, Arcane Signet, but I guess they're relying more on the Generous Plunder, Reckless Barbarian, Magda, the 2 Magdas for more mana production, I guess. But that's something I'm a little spooked about, and I would probably want to put in some more other mana rocks like Fellwar Stone and Arcane Signet. Talismans that I don't even see a talisman in here, which is surprising. But I guess you want to have all the 0 cost, all the very cheap ones, so be able to cast them out and then be able to have mana for interaction as well. I would assume that's the thought process behind it. We have Curiosity, which is fantastic. Aphidina, which is great, because I've been telling Anthony to put these in, and he didn't used to run these, and that was just so weird to me, and it pissed me off personally. So I was hounding him all the time I saw him to just put in at least one of them. You need some way to just have a just 1 card combo in the deck, and it's just an obvious one, so you should do that. Curse of Opulence, which is funny to see now. I expect to probably see more of Curse of Opulence with decks that really want to generate mana, and this is pretty good because then it starts putting a target on someone and getting people to start really attacking them and getting treasures. You are giving treasures to people and kind of ramping, but this could be kind of a big deal if you give it to the right opponent to kind of take away a lot of aggro off of you. If you start to look a little scary, you give your opponents maybe an opportunity, or at least a reason to start focusing their attention at someone else to gain something out of it. Steel Enchantment, which I'm seeing a lot more of. Before, I wasn't sold on this, but right now with the meta, how it's just insanely grindy and just revolving completely around Ristic Study, I can see this being... I see that I understand it more now. I do understand it more. I definitely had a game, a little small tournament that I went to over in LA, and that situation with a Steel Enchantment going around, yoinking a Ristic Study and it being bounced and played, and it was a pretty funny interaction going on with the Steel Enchantment. So it's hilarious. I'm not 100% sold on it. I don't think I would be playing it in any decks I play at the moment, but I do see why people play it. I've seen it do its thing early on, late game, and it's been, quite dangerous, especially when it gets to the late game and you start to like steal a Ristic Study, or like in the mid game. It can, if you can time it right, it's pretty brutal. And 26 lands, 29 including the MDFCs. So overall, interesting to see the new changes to Niv Mizzet. I'm not a Niv Mizzet player, so I don't know how much of these are good, how much of these are weird. I'm gonna come from this from primarily a blue farm player, seeing these kind of changes. But that's gonna be Anthony's Niv Mizzet deck. So we're gonna go on from here. In number 15, we have Javier on Thras Rograk. Now, this seems to be the new hotness, which I don't know if I'm sold on it, mainly because I'm not really a green player and I'm not a big fan of playing with green. But I don't know if this is better than Rog Sai. I could imagine this being a little bit more resilient because I think Rog Sai is a little bit more glass cannon. So this might be able to help bounce back when you get stopped or if anyone's kind of coping in the early game. But yeah, let's go through it. So we have Tezzeret, I'm assuming to get kind of Basalt. We got Devoted Druids. We're running some Devoted Druid lines, obviously. Tamio, it's just interesting. Whenever student attacks, investigate. When you draw your third card, transform it. What does the transform do for this deck? Until your next turn, whenever creature attacks. I guess it's for a more. I guess it would be for recursion. I'm not too sure about Rock Thrust. I'm not gonna have too much insight on this since I don't really play green, and I'm kind of Frog side pilled at the moment, so I'm more on and I enjoy more Grixis Esper piles. So there's a lot gonna be unknowns. 6, I've seen 6 do work. 6 is pretty great, so it's cool to see that. Classic Seaborn, Hullbreaker Horror, High Fate Trickster. Now this one I am wondering how many decks are going to be running High Fate Trickster to really have more instant speed effects in decks. Now, I see High Fate Trickster here, but I don't see the Otter in here, which I'm assuming they are prioritizing being able to flash anything and kind of green deck revolving more around creatures, so I can see why they would prefer High Fate Trickster over the Otter. Sowing Michael Spawn another way. I've seen this do a bit of work. I'm not too convinced on it. I'm assuming there might be some way to abuse it more in these decks, but it's kind of been just meh card to me. We got the usual Finale, Neoform, Eldritch Evolution. We have Windfall, and then we have Malevolent Rumble. Now this is reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a permanent card from your hand, from among them into your hand, and put the rest in your graveyard, create a spawn. So I guess it's a little bit of card draw, and you ramp, at least get you refund the colorless part of the spell. Interesting to see that. I don't know if that's more just to like dig deep to find some of the combo pieces, you know, Devoted Druid, High Fate Trickster, your Hullbreaker Horror, Seedborn, or whatever else. Just dig, get some, I guess, you know, yeah, find your Basalt, whatever. Anything here on the instance, everything seems kind of the same. No, yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. Enough flare, yep. What do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3 red creatures only. So I guess they're gonna be hard casting it most of the time. I know they have Brograk, but after that they're just gonna have the one of. I mean, it's still worth it. But okay. We have the flare here. Springleaf Dove, Soul Ring, Basalt, Machine God Effigy. Ooh, what do we have here? Candelabra of Tawnos, untap X. Okay, just to abuse. I'm assuming the what is it? Gaia's Cradle, right? Am I blind? Am I not seeing a Gaia's Cradle? I have to be blind. I'm not seeing a Gaia's Cradle, so I'm wondering what's up with the Candelabra Earthcraft to get that going. Possibly Fertile Ground. Chant Lemon Challenge tap for mana. Control adds additional. Okay, just another enchantment that adds more mana. You know, Utopia Sprawl kind of effect. Oh, here it is. Okay, I am blind. Jesus. Okay, yeah. Right. I would assume Candelabra is for just kind of abusing a Gaia's Cradle and making a certain amount of mana. Can't imagine it being much with anything else. Maybe Manamo to untap and do some more stuff with what? With One Ring? Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's for that. Relic of Legends. Yep, classic. I see that a lot in Thrasios X decks. And a lot of Sisei too. I see that. I don't know if Sisei is running it still now. I would assume they are still running a lot of legendary creatures. Machine God's Effigy, you know, part of the Devoted Druid combo there as well. So honestly, I think it's a solid looking deck. Like I said, most of the green decks, I'm just really not going to have much to say on because I don't play that color. It's not something I'm very familiar with. I have yet to come across any Thrasios Rogs from memory since the bannings, but when the more Rag Thrasios decks, I'm sure we're going to see more of, and it's going to gain more traction. Mainly, I guess, just because Rograk can, of course, abuse all the free spells and sack sack them for effects like Flare and all the other rituals. So, yeah, that's going to be Thras Rog from Javier. Moving on to number 14. At number 14, we got Julian's Magda. I love it. Great player. Did some great work on Magda recently over at Punch City, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Now, Magda obviously is just making a lot of getting a lot of treasures and then a artifact dwarf and some other dwarfs to start getting the combo going with the Clock of Omens. And I don't know how much new stuff is in here. We got the new Magda in here. We got the 3-tree mascot. Yes, that's fairly new. A changeling. So now we have another artifact dwarf. So they're getting a lot more artifact dwarfs coming in. Get back form harvester as well. Oof, man, they're getting goodness. Yeah, they're getting a lot of support. Magda's been getting a lot of support, and it's kind of good to see because I think it is a deck that is, at least around here, I think it's kind of being slept on. Possibly, I love in my local meta, it is highly regarded and respected very well. I don't think anybody ever lets Magda stick around for a full turn cycle. People remove Magda because they know this deck, they've seen it work, and we have a local player that has done a lot of work with it. So I don't think locally here it can do very well just because people will give it the respect that it deserves. Now, in the wider meta, outside of where I'm at in NorCal, SoCal, I'm not too sure about. But I know Julian does some good work on Magda, so it's good to see him when he took it to, I believe, like I said, it was the Boil and got up in the did pretty well there with it. So it's good to see that happening. We got Plundering Barbarian here. When ETBs, destroy target artifact, create treasure. Yep, just create another treasure token. Pinnacle Monk, great. Let's see here. Whoa, what is this? Zoyawo's Justice? Definitely not pronouncing that. The owner of target artifact or creature with mana value 1 or greater shuffles it into the library, then that player discovers X, where X is its mana value. Interesting. I see. That's pretty cool. Reverberate, good to see. Very old school card. Fork, good to see. I see there's no. Yep, the flare's there. Bottle cap. Yep, another good card. Braid. Yep, kind of the usual kind of stuff. A lot of removal just to make sure you get rid of those opposition agents that stop Magda from winning. So it's good to see all that. A lot of artifacts, of course, the normal stacks pieces that don't really affect Magda too much. Dampening Sphere, Disruptor Flu, Flywheel Racer, just a little on the mana. Torpor Orb, yep. God Pharaoh Statue, Nexus of Becoming. Okay, yeah. Beginning of combat, you turn, draw a card, then you may exile artifact creature card from your hand. If you do, create a token that's a copy of the extra creature, that's the artifact. Interesting. Just to kind of cheat more stuff into play from your hand. And it does make an artifact version of it, so you can just pitch whatever random dwarf you have, and it can kind of get the combo started. But I would assume if you're kind of going through the combo, you already have Clock of Omens and going through to get this big one. I guess it's just like a backup, really, to have it. I'm not too sure. Maybe some Magda players can chime in on that for me. Portal Phyrexia, yep, kind of the usual stuff. Here in the lands, yep, very simple, 26 lands. Talent Gets a Modder has been very great. I see a lot of low-colored decks bringing this in, even some 3-colored decks just to ensure to get rid of some stacks pieces. Really good for Magda, I think, just to have another piece to get rid of primarily opposition agent or whatever else might come about to stop them from doing their win. But yeah, this is solid Magda list I'm looking at. Julian, solid player, doing great. So hope to see him continue to do great on Magda, and Magda get more pieces to kind of start competing harder for that, top 5 best CDH decks, and especially being monocolored, that would be pretty good to see. So let's move on. At number 13, we got Skylar, who was on the channel not too long ago. Well, actually quite some time ago now that I think about it. But yeah, he's known to be playing Rogsai. As far as I know, I've only ever known him to be on Rogsai. So here he is in 13th place. Now, I think everything seems to be the usual. I don't think there's anything kind of standing out of the way. Of course, just trying to be as fast as possible, abusing Rograd's zero mana cost for a lot of rituals, early Jessica's wills, flares, sacking him for spells and mana. So a lot of the usual stuff. This seems to be just normal Rockside good stuff. I do see Entomb. Okay, and he is running the Bola Citadel lines. I'm not a big fan of the Bola Citadel lines, at least for me when I've been because I've transitioned over to Rockside since the bans, just to really get on a new deck and start piloting something new. Um, I've tried out the Bola Citadel lines and they have not done well for me. I'm not too familiar with playing it, so that's probably why, but they just have not felt good for me personally. So I don't run the Citadel lines. But yeah, it's, Citadel, Entomb, and of course, Goblin Welder. So yeah, pretty standard Rockside list, but just with the Citadel lines. And I'm not too sure how many people are going because it's kind of mixed up here, at least for me in my experience of who's on the. You're either on the Citadel lines or you're not. I am on generic Grixis good stuff and not on the Citadel lines. But yeah, they're pretty generic, normal, go fast, for hope for nobody coping Rogsai here from Skylar. In 12th place, we have Loke or Loche, otherwise known as Derek, who made it to the to the finals of Fishbowl 4 with me. So it's good to see him still doing great, still rocking Rogsai, of course. Like the previous one, not much to say here, other than notable inclusion, Demonic Council. Now this seems to be a little divisive. A lot of people on Rockside, from what I've seen, if they're on it or not. A lot of people are saying it's pure gas. It's fantastic. It's so good. 2-mana tutor is obviously the bee's knees. Personally, it's been 50-50. I either can't get Delirium active. I'm either short 1 or 2 cards because most of the time you're pitching fetch lands and maybe some sorceries from like wheels or something. But so far for me, I have yet to get very consistent with getting Demonic Council active. I've been struggling with getting Delirium active a lot. So for me, it's been 50-50. When it is active, it is phenomenal and fantastic. But most of the times it's kind of just dead and it doesn't really do much. But that's a notable card that's being run here. And going through, it doesn't look like he is on the Bola Citadel package, which I like. I'm not a big fan of the package, as I stated. Everything else seems to be about the same. I see he's running on a lot of counter spells, which a lot of Rogside players are not on. A lot of counter spells, being a little bit more greedy. My list kind of included. I'm not running very many. Let's see here. Everything else seems to be about the same. On the Leyland of Anticipation, made famously by Ryan over at Fishbowl. And I believe it was debuted. A lot of Rockside players started debuting Leyland, and it has done some work. I personally am running it as well because I'm a big fan of it, and just to get more instant speed kind of stuff going would be really good. Obviously, if you don't get it pretty early on, or if it's getting your opening hand, it could sometimes be dead, but it can still be a pitch card for your Chromox or any other kind of Force of Will or whatever. So it can still do something, and a little bit tough on the Nas plays for hitting you for 4, but it's whatever. Now I want to talk about is this Waste Knot, this sick nasty tech here that I haven't seen before, which I'm surprised because this kind of feels like a more slower Rockside plan, which is surprising because I feel like you definitely want to go fast. But if you can set up a Waste Knot and then get a wheel going, I'm assuming this can be pretty nutty. This is pretty cool to see. So for those who don't know, Waste Knot, 2-mana enchantment, colorless, black. Whenever an opponent discards a creature card, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, add double black. Whenever an opponent discards a non-creature, non-land card, you draw a card. So if you're wheeling 3 different players and they're drawing a mix of these, like even if it's like, everyone in their hand has like 2 of each, That's a lot of mana. That's a lot of cards. That's a lot of nerds for whatever else. If you want to be casting, your spells to sack creatures, whatever else. Like you can just not set up for wins, maybe set up for like instant speed win, just start beating face in and having up your win con up at flash speed. Yeah, waste not could be pretty nutty. So this is actually a really cool tech piece to see. I'm interested to hear how much work it's actually done, if this was fairly new, at least since this event has happened from September. So we're now in December, is when this video is being recorded. So if Derek is still on this card, I would really like to hear how it has been performing. So because I'm very interested in it. But everything else seems to be kind of normal ROG size stuff. Otherwise, with the notable features of Demonic Council and Waste Not. So that's fantastic. So let's move on. In 11th place, we got Evan over here trying to keep the Corval dream alive, coping. But let's go through what Corval's kind of looking like now. Notable things that I don't know have been ran before is Chatterfang and Warren Soul Trader, which is pretty cool. Would have been better before. Sticks, some good stuff. Normal Tinderwall, nice to see Dosen. Calling Ritual, fantastic card. Wind Flame, yup. Yeah, I think everything seems to be kind of the same, except without obviously the much needed dock side that breaks this deck. It's just not around. Black market connections. Oh yeah. Oh, you hate to see it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. What can I say about Corval that hasn't been said before? Corval is now in the realm of fair magic, which is not something you want to be doing in CDH, especially when you got stuff like ROG Side running around or ROG X decks right now going around, just kind of flying over you while you're trying to set up with your 3 mana spells, your 4 mana Grim, and trying to get treasures. Ooh, yeah, it's pretty tough. I think, I don't know if, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what kind of build that it could be with Corvald that could help compete or make it anywhere near what it used to be with Dockside. Sorry, Evan. I know this was your favorite deck, and it was great to see you. It was very scary coming up against you in the old days on Corvald, but now, yeah, Corvald kind of sucks. I mean, I don't know. I see some people doing kind of some work. I mean, he's done great work here. You made it to the top 16. But I mean, it can only get you so far, it seems like. So that's unfortunate to see. I'm not sure what kind of new lines are being run now. Something with Soul Trader and Zulu Cupro of like looping creatures, I would assume. Yeah, and Tomb putting things in. Son half combos. I would assume stuff with Chatterfang. I don't know what to say here. Corvald, it's to me not impressive, and this is Corvald making it to this top 16 is really just only shows me that Evan is, he knows what he's doing on Corvald, and that's all I can say about that. But yeah, let's move on. In 10th place, we got Oscar, otherwise known as Oso, here on TNK, as he names Baba Yaga the Monster, aka TNK. I don't think they are the monster anymore now with the bans. I think a lot of people are trying to play it. Even personally, me, I've played Blue Farm post bans, and it has felt terrible. I have not liked how it's felt. And that's I only say that with not Dockside, JLo and Crypt being gone. I could care less about Dockside. I didn't think Dockside was good for CDH in general. I know it was essential for some decks to function like Corvald, but I didn't think it was a good card for CDH at all. I think it kept other decks and game plans from being viable more so than it enabled more decks to be viable. So let's go and see what we got here. So we got Teferi Kitten lines, which we don't really see in Blue Form anymore, but I guess we'll start seeing. Bergie, same thing. Not seen a lot of Bergie before, but now we're seeing a lot more of probably. I'm not too sure about Bergie because then you're kind of bogging up 3 mana a lot because you usually want to be casting your Tymna with 3 mana. And if you have 3 mana, you got Timna, Bergi, Oppo, Facebreaker, Ranger Captain, Rhystic Study. You're getting a lot of stuff at 3 that's kind of tough to really be able to cast consistently without the mana crypt and other mana sources. So I don't know how tough it's going to be to be deciding these 3 pieces of which one to throw out first. Obviously, I would assume you want to get the Timna out first, and then or get Facebreaker out first and then Timna, so then you can swing in or whatever. Might depend on the board state and the matchups and seed position and whatnot. But yeah, seeing Bergie, Facebreaker, seeing it doesn't seem very good to me. And when I played him, I wasn't a big fan of him. Looks like Mockingbird seems to be the new de facto clone piece now. That's obviously, since they're not around, so we don't see a lot of clones. But I'm surprised to see Metamorph here, because normally now we see only just the Mockingbird because it can be fetched out by the Ranger, not seeing any other clones. So it's interesting to see Metamorph, which I would assume just kind of to copy out some more, some other pieces from people, copy other Orcish Bowmasters maybe, One Rings or whatever else. So interesting to see that Oscar here's opting to play an additional tutor piece. Here in the sorceries, everything's kind of the same, nothing different here. Any minor missteps here? Note, Angel's Grace is fantastic to see. I love more people are getting onto it. I've been harping on Angel's Grace for a long time. Even in Lamore, when he did a video recap of my deck, seeing the Angel's Grace and coming around to it and just calling me cope. It's not cope. It's great. The floor is you're stopping a Thassa's. Oh, sorry. The floor is you're offering an ID when someone's going for a Thorical play. Mid-tier, your interaction piece. Top end, Angel's Grace, ad nause, or you're doing something cheeky like having a bunch of draw engines and saying, here's consultation, exile your library, and people are just like, what the heck? You have like 3 draw engines like I don't know, Polywog or Sentinels that are mandatory triggers, and you have a Thassa trigger, and someone's gonna be like, sure, cast a spell, and you're like, yeah, Angel's Grace, and they just kind of let the spells go through, and you just kind of win right under them. I won that way, and it feels good. We have March of Swirling Mist. I believe most of that is on Waffle's list. I see he's kind of the only blue farm player that plays March of Swirling Mist. Not a lot of blue farm players over here that I've seen play it, at least firsthand during the tournaments. Yeah, I'm not too sure about March of Swirling Mist. I haven't seen a lot of stacks pieces, so I don't see really why you would want to be removing a lot of different creatures. Maybe to like get in some Timna attackers maybe, but I don't know. I'm not too sold on March of Swirling Mist. I think just the one of kind of interaction pieces is usually good enough to get rid of whatever piece you're dealing with. But maybe I'm wrong, and he's been seeing a lot more stacks pieces where his meta's at, so maybe that's why he's including March of Swirling Mist, or just to get a lot of pieces off at once. Kind of be like another pseudo board wipe, which actually, I just now noticing he's not running Deluge. So I guess March of Swirling Mist is gonna be his board wipe and at instant speed, which can be kind of a big deal, as opposed to the normal board wipe that we see with Deluge and sacrificing your life. So interesting to see March of Swirling Mist over Deluge. That's actually something I might be interested in trying out, even though it's a little bit mana intensive. Obviously, you can pitch a bunch of useless blue cards to reduce it. But yeah, interesting to see that. That's actually, yeah, interesting. Yeah, let's continue on. The rest of the instant speed spells seem to be about the same. Mana package seems to be on par, and then the enchantments same, except for copy enchantment. Opting for copy enchantment instead of the necropotence. I am a big fan of not copy enchantment, but not playing necropotence. I think it's kind of a bait. I'm not a big fan of necropotence in blue form. I think it's a card that you don't need to be running. Sure, it could be good if you have it like turn 1-2 with like a Dark Ritual necropotence, but honestly, I think right now with the meta's at, I don't think blue form cares for or needs to be running necropotence, and I think it is a bait card. But copy enchantment is pretty interesting to just copy another Rhystic Study, copy a Smothering Tide, copy some other enchantments that somebody might have. It's interesting to see. So if it's kind of function as like a second Rhystic Study. If someone else gets theirs, you can just cast one. Now you have one. Or if you cast your Rhystic Study, you now have two Rhystic Studies, which can be pretty freaking nasty. So I'm interested in that. That's interesting to see. I don't know if copy enchantment is better than steal enchantment. I think that's kind of like something players got to think about, depending maybe on their meta or kind of what they think they're going to be seeing. So I think copy enchantment and steal enchantment are in this slot of which one would you rather run. I think I would probably prefer steal enchantment, because I would rather take someone else's Rhystic Study and deny that resource and just make a copy of it, because you don't want to draw them a card, so you're basically paying 4 mana to copy their Rhystic Study and hope it doesn't get countered. So I think I'd prefer steal enchantment over copy enchantment, but I can see copy enchantment on Swelling Tide being pretty nasty. The lands all seem to be about the same except Forbidden Orchard. I think this is a terrible card to be running in Tymna, because you want to be attacking and you want to be getting in there and making sure they don't have any blockers. And I hear the same thing over and over for Forbidden Orchard for people, where you can give people blockers to stop other Tymnas or to stop Ragavans or whatever. I don't care. I'm not giving my opponent resources. I can get my mana from some other, dual land I can put in, or battle land. Like I'm not struggling with mana sources, at least in my experience. I have not struggled with mana sources, so I've never felt or thought the need of running Forbidden Orchard. So I think blue farm decks running Forbidden Orchard is a mistake. I don't think it's a good card to be running. But other than that, seems to be standard blue farm stuff with some new things to kind of change with the times. But yeah, that's kind of it. Let's move on. So in 9th place, we have Landon on Kinnan. However, I'm seeing I'm getting a 404 here, so I guess we can't talk about Kinnan. I'm assuming it's gonna be the same things, not much difference with it. So I can only speculate, but Kinnan doesn't really change that much. I don't think a lot of things have been different, with it. So that's, yeah, I guess we can talk about it. Moving on. In 8th place, we had Leo, which I guess his deck wasn't uploaded on there, so it doesn't seem to be something might be with, I know there were some issues with EDH top 16 pulling data in, so it looks like 8th place doesn't have anything imported there for it. So we're moving on to Alex Leans here, Rock Stylist in 7th place, drinking the Cabalade. I love that. So let's move on and see what we have here with this Rock Stylist. So here we have Demonic Council. Okay, same kind of things. I don't see Welder, so it looks like it might not be a Bolas Citadel deck. Here everything seems to be about the same. Yup, anything new? Mishra's Bauble, interesting. And Chromatic Sphere and Chromatic Star. Now these are some interesting inclusions that has piqued my interest in Rockside. Mishra's Bauble, just to get a little bit more information on an opponent, and then just 0 mana draw a card, which I think could help break some of the top deck tutors a little bit. Still drawing them on the next turn, but at least you're kind of cracking them a little bit better. You can kind of set up at the end step and draw, have like a Mishra's Bauble, and then at the end step going into your turn, top deck tutor, crack Mishra's to draw, and then draw your normal cards instead of removing your card when you instant speed end of step top deck tutor. So cool to see Mishra's Bauble, and I guess it's the same thing with the Chromatic Stars. And I see the chromatic stuff as fixing your mana, because I can guarantee there's so many times you have a lot of black mana or a lot of red mana, and you need the blue to be able to do something. So I've been in that position many times, so that it is interesting to see Chromatic Sphere and Chromatic Star to help fix that situation. I mean, I know lots of times when I've done a Jessica's Will and rip like 8 red mana, and I have like a bunch of blue spells in the exile. I'm like, great, I have no mana to cast that, and they're dead cards and I can't see them anymore, they go away. Or I need like 1 black or 2 black. So I am a big fan of the chromatic eggs here in the deck to be able to fix your mana. That's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of that. Could also help increase your storm count if you're going for breach lines too. Yeah, I think that's fantastic, especially even in your necro lines at the very end step, you can generate a lot of mana to instant speed, and sometimes that can only be black or red mana, with your sacking Rockside with some of the rituals. So being able to have the Chromatic Star to fix that mana to start getting the blue to do other stuff is fantastic too. I think it's great. I'm a big fan of these two inclusions. I don't know what I would cut in my list to make room for that, but that is something I do want to try to make room for. Same thing with Mishra's Bauble. I'm not too sold on Mishra's Bauble, but I am very interested in testing out some of the chromatic rocks here. So if Alex wants to chime in, if I'm correct in my assumption here and how the egg species have been doing, that would be great here. 25 lands, the usual kind of greedy land base, but interesting to see Talon Gates. I don't recall seeing Talon Gates in the other rock side list, so it might have just briefly went over because I can't imagine most of the deck list changing. That's interesting to see, and as well with Peat Bog. Interesting to see Peat Bog, not just some other usual shocks and dual lands. I'm surprised I'm seeing Peat Bog. I'm not sure why that would be here. I mean, it adds double black, sure, but I don't know. That seems to be too slow for like something like Rockside, which is interesting. But it's cool to see Talon Gates to help, just get rid of some problematic cards. I would assume usually Oppo or Dranith, but whatever other stacks piece might be on the battlefield. So it's interesting to see Talon Gates, honestly, in Rockside. But I guess just to be help out with some more, just be more removal, I guess, for removing some problematic cards, at least creatures. Other than that, seems to be generic Broxite, and yeah, we're gonna move on. In 6th place, we got Valerie on TNK. I've definitely played a game with them, and they were fantastic to play with. They seem to be very knowledgeable. I'm not very familiar with this person, so it was good to see them in the tournament play. Was able to sneak a win under them at instant speed, which was fantastic play that I got to do. But let's see what we got going in this blue farm list. Right away, that sticks out to me is Serra Ascendant. I love Serra Ascendant. I used to play it when I first started blue farm. I had a Serra Ascendant list, but I took it out because locally I would receive so much hate for Serra Ascendant. Like, the table would immediately be on like, oh my god, Serra Ascendant 6/6. We're gonna die in 2 turns. We gotta beat him up and spend everything and kill this player. I cut it a long time ago for it, and obviously because more better cards have come out since then. But now I am interested in going back to Serra Ascendant potentially. I love this card. It's fantastic. Good Timid attacker. Good way to gain life, especially because you're kind of willy-nilly throwing the life away to a lot of stuff, pay lands, rocks, and whatever else. And then obviously having a bigger life pool when it comes to Necro and Adnaz lands would be very helpful. So it's fantastic to see that. We have Archivist and the Polywalk and the Fairy Mastermind. Interesting to see the Fairy Mastermind. I know that definitely fell out of favor, but I guess now they're having a lot of draw engines, so getting really into the blue farm, which is pretty interesting. Volatile Storm Drake, interesting to see that instead of the usual Drake that we see. So I guess it's more, I guess that's something you gotta want to think about, is if you want to have the other Drake to steal stuff to use for yourself, or run the Volatile Storm Drake with really, I think this is more of being able to take something and then letting it die so you can get it off the board. But yeah, I think interesting to see these cards here. Valley Flood Caller kind of seems to be a new staple in Blue Farm, just to have more instant speed stuff in the deck. The usual stuff here. I'm not seeing Deluge here, which leads me to believe we might see some more removal, maybe March of Swirling Mist. No March of Swirling Mist, so just okay. But we have Path, Blast, the Strict Serenade for the creatures. Okay, so Strict Serenade to get rid of more creatures. But yeah, interesting. No board wipe, no Deluge here. I'm not sure if that's more greedy, or if you just want to help preserve life, or don't really care, or kind of have that mindset of, well, if there's usually one creature that's kind of stopping me from winning, so I'm just gonna get rid of it. And if it's problematic enough, Strict Serenade to get rid of whatever creature, which I would assume usually would be just the Thassa, maybe a Bowmaster, or Seedborn Muse. But yeah, so going down to the artifacts, seems to be kind of the normal kind of rocks here. And then the enchantments, we have the usual Necroristic, Smothering. Yep, nothing out of the ordinary. Now, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not seeing Adnaz. Interesting. There's no Nas here. Now, I don't know if that's because they don't like playing the Nas and would rather rely on Necro Breach and the One Ring, or just to be able to have that politic of saying, hey, I'm not running Adnaz and you don't need to hit me. because you can kind of get a lot of heat off you just by telling people you're not playing Ananas. Though people believing you would be an entirely different thing, because sometimes people just don't believe other people. And then we have 28 lands, and of course with the Talon Gates in the list as well here. So okay, yeah, interesting to see a Nozless blue farm deck. So okay, yeah, interesting to see that. All right, seems to be the usual standard package of blue farm. In fifth place, we got my boy Rupon rocking Agila since kind of day one, really. And since we got into playing CDH together, one of my locals here, good to see him doing fantastic on it. Anything notable from Najila? I think it's just Samut. Being able to see Samut, I know Samut's not new and it's been around for quite some time, but I think that it's been such an insane boon for Najila, and just seeing it in action has been nuts. I know professional Facebreaker for him came back in to help generate a little bit more mana now that we don't have, the usual Dockside and everything else here. I know he put back in Derevi lines. Kutzel's been fantastic. Calling Ritual's been MVP, kind of been the new Dockside for him and for other people that I've seen within the colors I can play Calling Ritual. Everything's kind of the same thing here with the usual instance here. Adnos, Angel's Grace, like good to see him on him. I finally got him around to playing Angel's Grace, and he's definitely gotten some people with Angel's Grace. I did some games with Angel's Grace, and even just been able to save games and win because of Angel's Grace. So it's good to see people finally getting on that Angel's Grace train. I'm gonna get more people on it. All right, if you're running white, you need to be running Angel's Grace. Let's see, artifacts, kind of the same deal. Wish Claw, and then of course Remora, Breach, and Ristic Study, and then the 28 lands, just a little higher land count just to make sure you're hitting those land drops for your 5-color commander to be able to start activating. But yeah, I think pretty generic Najila list, nothing too fancy, nothing too crazy, nothing too out of the ordinary, other than I guess the Angel's Grace. But yeah, that's gonna be it. Good to see Rupon still killing it with Najila, and hopefully we'll go to more tournaments and he can continue doing great with them. In fourth place, we got Jack on another Rogside list. Right away, see, looks like he's on the Citadel lines. He's also on Demonic Council. Let's see, anything else new out of the ordinary? No, he is on some more interaction than other ones, but not running Force of Will, trying to save some life with that Adnaz. Yep, Citadel, nothing new. Chromatic Star, so he's only running one of the eggs to help fix with mana, and then the usual enchantments, the Necros, and so on. 23 lands, whoa, that is super greedy. I don't think I've seen a list here that's gone down to 23 lands ever. I think the lowest I've ever seen was 24, so that is giga greedy on the 23 lands. Damn. All right, that's fantastic. Yep, everything else seems to be the same, nothing new other than just 23 lands, one egg. Yeah, one egg that I can see here to help fix with mana, and everything else seems to be the same generic good stuff on Rockside. Yeah, and I don't think anything else to say here. In third place, we got Joshua over on Inala. Now, for those who are not familiar, Nana has Inala, oof, can't spoke, has an Eminence ability, which is something you can activate, or a trigger that can trigger from the command zone. Whenever another non-token wizard enters the battlefield under your control, if Inala is in your command zone, you can pay 1. If you do create a token, that's a copy of that wizard. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. So the whole thing is that you're basically, looping Spellseeker to kind of sort of like pseudopod through your deck to get stuff, to continue looping and going through your deck to get Scholar of Ages, draw your deck, Bloodline Necromancer, Ruthless Technomancer to start making infinite, or at least an insane amount of treasures. And you can do this all from, like, I've seen it turn 0 from people just having like Leyline start going off and doing it like before someone has taken a turn, or not Leyline, but I mean Gemstone. Oof, can't remember anything. But yeah, you're just like Essence Flux to bounce Flicker your cards, your Spellseeker to get more triggers on the stack, your Imperial Recruiters, and then Dual Caster lines, Infinite Nerds, porting Brood Lord, and then you're using all those tokens to tap and convoke all your other spells. It can be pretty nutty. A lot of people that don't know how to kind of maneuver around it, it can be tough. 27 lands, no talent gates, nope, just full gas on here. I don't have too much experience against Nala, but I do know if you can counter and choke them out on the mana, like that's where you want to interact, is when they're trying to generate the mana to be able to have enough to keep going. Obviously, exiling Spellseeker or the deck Technomancer with like a sword or the Scholar at a correct time can help out in response to the triggers, because well, I guess it doesn't really matter because they're going to be making tokens. But yeah, you can still disrupt the combo if you can get a timely sword or something on the Spellseeker or Technomancer or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of how the deck functions. Baseline. Anyone that plays a Nala can put some lines in the comments below if they care to really talk about more in depth of how the deck functions. But that's kind of really how it goes. It can be pretty scary, just as scary and fast as Roxai, if not probably scarier. But yeah, that's a Nala, and let's move on. In second place, we got Michael, otherwise known as Punchy, again with another Rogside deck. And looks like he as well is on the Citadel lines with Demonic Council. Let's see here, playing Force of Will, being a little bit more responsible than most. And yep, not on Leyline and not on... Oh, yep, he is on one of the eggs pieces to help fix with mana and 24 lands. Okay, the usual 24 that people would see. But yeah, everything seems to be the generic good stuff here. Like I said, nothing much to see here, but it looks like the new tech seems to be Chromatic Star to help fix with that mana situation, which I'm a big fan of. But yeah, let's move on to first place. In first place, we got Max on Francisco, Foul Marauder, and Thrasios. Now, this was a very interesting deck to see. Personally, because I know with Francisco, you can have the combo with Cauldron in the command zone, but I struggle to think why Francisco is better over Tymna in getting that extra color in the command zone to get access to Sabine, Silence, and Swords, Grand Abolisher, and all those other effects to help protect your win con. So that's something I asked, and believe he just said he liked just being a 3 color. So yeah, it's interesting to see here. But let's continue on. So we got Walking Ballista combos, we got Talion, Seedborn, Rev the Tithe Extracted, hard to read from here. Now this is a new card that has three colors, 1 black, 3/3, legendary creature, human rogue. Whenever you attack, target creature gains death touch until end of turn. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal common damage to a player, create a treasure token. Then look at the top card of that player's library and exile it face down. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. This is pretty interesting. I don't know if this is a good rate at 4 mana, but if you're playing some kind of Thrasios X deck, you're usually have mana dorks or have ways to be able to cast 4 mana spells kind of reliably. And it won't be that difficult for you. Now, I think Rev is interesting because sometimes you can get to a point where your mana dorks are kind of useless and you're not really doing much with them other than just being on standby to, tap for mana and cast whatever spell you're casting. But I think with Rev, it can kind of turn them into value machines, because now they have one of them can have Death Touch, and you start like swinging in with the Elvish Mystic at somebody and it has Death Touch, and they're like, oh god, they're gonna get a treasure token and snipe something from my deck. Am I gonna block this with something usually important, or am I gonna just take this and lose a card? So that can be a little scary, and that's pretty cool. I actually like seeing Rev in this deck. Of course, we got usual con swings here. Valley Flood Caller, not running High Fate Trickster. Not sure if, why they would prefer that, because I do believe there's like creature lines, right, with Walking Ballista and Francisco. So I'm surprised they're running Valley Flood Caller over High Fate Trickster, given that they have some creature combos that they can do in this deck. Here in the sorcery, same thing. Still not seeing Deluge. I guess not surprising to see these kind of decks, but looks like a lot of people are just opting out of way to Deluge. Seems like Culling Ritual and March of Swirling Mist seems to be kind of the de facto board wipe currently, is what I'm seeing right now. Let's go to the instance. Banishing Knack. Yep, I guess that's why they're running the Valley Flooded Caller, just with the Banishing Knack and Helix, maybe? No, just the, just the banishing neck, I guess. Yeah, let's see the normal kind of interaction suite here, normal kind of stuff. Artifacts, same thing with Basalt, Agatha, Soul Cauldron for the combos. Nothing here out of the ordinary. Enchantments. You got combat research. Interesting. What's this? I don't think I've ever seen this one. Enchanted creature has whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Oh, with okay, just with Francisco, I guess. And as long as the enchanted creature's legendary, gets +1/+1 and has word 1. Whoa, that's pretty cool. Now you can have Francisco have power to be able to swing in. If you have Brev, it's going to be more difficult to block if they have any flyers. But okay, this is pretty interesting. Wow, and ward 1. Wow, I like that a lot. That's pretty good. You can even put that on your otter if you want to give it ward just to be able to go through lines. Seedborn, I guess, too, if you wanted to make it a little bit more difficult for people to interact with. Wow, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That's really cool. I've never seen this card before. The rest of the enchantments, kind of the same thing. Necro, interesting running Necro Potents. Figured that's something that it wouldn't really care about wanting to do, or yeah, I feel like it might be. I guess you still have all the instant speed stuff. Yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah, and then 27 lands, 28 including the MDFCs, Talon Gates. Yep, just to make sure. Interesting. Okay, yeah, this was a fantastic deck. Played against it in one of the rounds. Quite oppressive, just being able to do its thing of just play outdoors and get a lot of value out. Then again, he did have a pretty cracked hand in the one round that I played against him. Great player. I've seen him play on Talion before, and even with that, he's maneuvered the deck very well. So I know he's a very great player, really good at what he does here on Magic. So it's good to see him getting a win here with this very unique deck, something I haven't seen personally, and I don't think a lot of people are seeing. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for the All Hallows Eve tournament. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you guys next week for another top 16 breakdown of some event that's happened here on the West Coast. Hopefully, I'll be able to attend to it, or I was in it and I didn't get some Mollywop. In this tournament, I was playing Brogside, but I'm still fairly new to the deck, so not very proficient at it right now, and just kind of getting stopped from not seeing lines or going too greedy, or just not timing things correctly. So I'm still trying to learn that deck, but I'm probably gonna take a couple more L's on some tournaments before I feel very comfortable with the deck, unless I go back to Blue Farm and I find a build that I like, because that's kind of my deck and I really enjoyed playing it. But like I said, that's gonna be it. Thank you guys so much. If you're interested in seeing some more content specifically in the West Coast, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like this video if you liked it, comment below if you saw a deck or card that you were interested in, or if you participated in the tournament to give some more insight. I'd love to hear that. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Good night.